We're going to take a look at a tubular cast on for centre out double knitting. We're going to begin the cast on with just one colour, and then we'll introduce a second colour on the first round. So to prepare for the cast on, make a loop and have at least a 10-inch tail sticking out to the right, and the tail yarn should lead behind the yarn going to the ball. Now we're going to tuck our needle under the tail yarn and knit up a stitch under the loop. So we just pulled that yarn from the ball under the needle. We just pulled that yarn from the ball under that strand of the loop, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're going to make a yarn over, then we're going to knit underneath the side of that loop. A yarn over, knit underneath the side of the loop. So we're actually using this as a knitting needle. So yarn over, knit up, yarn over, knit up. And I'm going to keep going like this till I've got 16 stitches. I have kept hold of my tail, although if it's nice and long you don't need to hold it, but I find it sort of comforting to hold it along with the knitting needle. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and I'm going to keep going till I've got 16. If you need extra yarn, you can always stretch your loop out a little bit and more yarn will feed in from the tail. I've got 15 stitches on the needle, and here is the 16th, which as you can see is quite wobbly. Now I'm going to divide this edge onto 2 needles. Before I do that though, I'm going to tighten up that loop. So just by pulling on that yarn tail, not too fiercely because we've got to slide the yarn through those stitches, I can pull on the tail and gradually sneak quite a bit of the slack out from underneath that needle. So we'll just tighten it up like that to begin with. If I wanted to cast on this way and introduce coloured wedges straight into round 1 of my knitting, I can do that quite easily. So we've cast on just as before the 16 stitches. Make sure this tail yarn is long enough so it doesn't come undone at this end, and I've cast my 16 stitches on. I'm going to gather my loop up because it's just a sliding loop, provided you haven't made your stitches too tight, and pull on that tail yarn. So if your yarn's weak at all, you're going to need to be extra gentle because you don't want your tail yarn to break. And you may end up trying it a couple of times until you get the tension about right. So I've taken the excess slack out there. Now I'm going to fold this round just as we did before. And as soon as it comes off the needle, it's going to want to bend around. 2, 3, 7, 8. And now I'm going to let it finish bending around. And I'm going to pull on that tail yarn a bit more to get rid of some more of that slack, tighten things up a little bit. So there's my last wobbly stitch. There's my tail. And now I'm going to turn the whole thing round by 180 degrees. So this is my working yarn, and this is the needle I want to start working across. And I want to set up my colour pattern as well. So I'm going to do a pink knit, and a green purl, can see I'm using my thumb to stabilize things. So that's one pair of stitches. Now if I want the colours of the next pair to be reversed, I'm going to do a green knit and swing them both through and do a pink purl, and I can swing them both back, and this time I want to reverse the colours again, so I'm going to do a pink knit and a green purl. And rather than dividing my stitches, I'm going to stay on this one needle for now. And now I need to do a green knit to reverse them back again, and a pink purl. So this is going to set up my stripe pattern right from the beginning of my knitting. I'm going to turn the work by 180 degrees and do the same thing across the second needle. In order to stop anything dropping off that first needle, I'm just going to pull it so the stitches are in the midpoint of the needle. And we finished with a pink purl, so this time we're going to begin with a pink knit. And the pairs of stitches, the knit purl pairs, are the opposite to one another. This is negative positive patterning. And I didn't introduce any alternative rotation purls into here. I think we've got an, oops, that needs to be green. And sometimes when things are very fiddly, I'll use both yarns in my right hand, but as soon as I possibly can, I'll get to two-handed knitting. And I think things are settling down now, so I'm going to introduce a third needle. So I need a pink knit, green purl, green knit, pink purl, and we're ready now for our coloured segments. I'm at the beginning of the round, and there is my pink knit and my green purl. So I'm going to increase in pink in the green one, just as we did before, the knit, yarn over, knit, increase. Bring the near yarn forward. Then I'm going to do a purl, yarn over, purl again, increase into the second stitch of the pair, and I'm going to repeat that all the way around the round, matching the colours. And you'll see I've got both hands working now, with one yarn in each hand. I'm going to make my increases, and then we will sort out the stitches on the next round, and I might as well get myself onto a set of 4 needles now. So I'm going to introduce a new needle at this point. So that's our increase round completed, and now let's redistribute the stitches, resequence them. And whilst it's at this delicate stage, we could resequence first and then work the stitches second. So if we slip that first one off, pop the other 2 onto a short cable needle, slip the first one of the back stitches, then we can hold these 2 needles side by side, take one from the front, take one from the back, take one from the front, take one from the back, and we've resequenced the stitches. So they're now in double knitting format. And we can keep on doing that all the way around the circle. So slip the first front layer one off, put the other 2 onto the short cable needle, then take a back stitch, a front stitch, a back stitch, a front stitch, a back stitch, and now the stitches are perfectly sequenced. And we'll repeat that all the way round the circle. When you tuck the cable needle in to those front stitches, keep control of it. It does have a tendency to want to turn itself around like that, so hold it parallel with the other needle, and that way your newly increased stitches won't get out of sequence. Now that the stitches are resequenced, we can just work them in their matching colours, knitting the front layer stitches and purling the back layer stitches. Don't be alarmed at these double stitches in the middle, because that's where a colour change happens. We're going from 3 pink stitches at the front to 3 blue stitches at the front. So we've actually got a colour pattern happening at the same time. Just match the colours. And I'm reverting to alternative purling here. So I'll just keep going until I've finished that round. Now that round is completed, we can take a look to see what it's going to look like when we gather up the stitches in the centre. And all of a sudden your stitch pattern takes shape. And this is what it will look like if you continue in this manner. So after an increase round, there are 3 plain rounds followed by another increase round in the central stitch of each wedge. The other side looks remarkably similar because we have equal distribution of colours on both sides. So behind this it's blue and behind that it's pink. This swatch is still on the needles, so it hasn't properly blocked to a circular shape at this point. But you can see how beautifully neat the centre of the cast on is.